to approach it. So I won't show you absolutely everything, of course. First thing is to notice these announcements, right? So I'll be changing these. This will be my way of kind of posting a note that everyone that I want everyone to see. Um, so they'll be changing and pay attention to those. The syllabus, you can look at, it's there. You probably ought to look at it anyway. I normally would give you a paper syllabus. Um, I want to go to modules because that's kind of how the course is built in modules. So the first one here is all the stuff you would get in the first page, with the pretty little icons for different policies and such. And you do want to look over all those. It's important to know those things. But I'm going to go down here to the actual content policy unit we're on right now, which is Unit 1. You see the dates here. Now, this is an online class, and I'm aware that you could move forward very quickly, or you could go really slowly. You're sort of managing your own time. But the point of the dates is to give you some pacing here. In other words, if you are doing these things at about these dates, you're going to be on pace to start the next unit when I think you should, etc., until we finally get to the end of the course, which will be in December. In other words, if you fall behind on the pacing here, if you find yourself, here we are in September, and you've not done the paper that's required in the first unit, you're making things hard on yourself. So it's important to try to keep up the pacing. I actually put the units to unlock. You see here, will unlock August 23rd. I've got them set to unlock about a few days before that date starts, the new unit. I don't want anybody working too far ahead because some of this work we're going to do as groups. Okay, so let me just go to the first one. When you look at the page, you'll see a couple of things, and this is pretty much standard the way I'm doing it. The first thing you're going to see, well, you'll see the dates that are involved in this unit, and you'll see kind of a block here telling you of when graded assignments will we do during this first unit. Some of them are graded discussions, some of them are essays, as a quiz and another essay. So this is the kind of work you'll be working on during this time. Tomorrow's the 20th. So your graded discussion on the poem and the short story should be in by then. Now, if you turn it in on the 21st or the 22nd or the 23rd, I'm probably not going to get down on you, and I probably won't ding you for grades or anything. But kind of keep aware of you don't want to fall behind, because by the 23rd or 24th, you should be doing this, not this. And then by the 26th, the student introduction essay is really easy. It's basically tell me about yourself. The quiz on the 26th, and you're going to be getting the introduction to this essay during about the 20th, tomorrow maybe. So you want to try to stay on pace. I have a welcome video for the course. If you haven't seen it already, go ahead and look at it, because it'll give you some ideas about what we're doing here. Now, I always put in learning objectives. So learning objectives for this unit, I got a list of things that I would like you to learn as a result of doing this unit. Okay, I always put that in. And also I put in what activities we're going to do in order to do this, to learn these things. Some of them are things that we would possibly do together. Other things, as a class, for example, some of the discussions. Other activities might be strictly you doing things while you're doing your work. For example, taking notes, reading the lectures, watching the videos. And it's important to take notes on the videos and the lectures, because you're going to need that information later on. And then I tell you how I'm going to grade you There's going to be quizzes. There's going to be the discussion, the class discussions, and the introductory essay. And at the bottom, this is the only time you'll see this one at the bottom. Then you want to go to the next. Now you notice at the top there's no tabs. This page is by itself. So let's go down to the bottom and hit next. And there's August 18th. I guess that would be yesterday. I don't know. But you got to pay attention. It says August 18th, but there are 2 tabs, right? And they're not necessarily 1 or 2 days. So the first tab is about defining literature. In this particular part of it, here's what you're going to learn. You're going to learn how these Nobel laureates feel about literature. You're going to actually read a poem and learn how to read and respond to a poem by Robert Frost. And you're going to use close reading strategies to read the story by Ernest Hemingway. After that, we got the activities described right here. Be sure you read them over carefully. In front of each video, I usually, in italics, I present you with a little context for it. So you're not just looking at it blind. When you play the video, take notes. Pause it, replay parts. So it's a real close thing. You got to read it carefully. This is what I have because I can't actually be with you. This one is an older video. It goes back into the early 1960s, and they didn't think about closed captioning back in those days. So there's no way to close caption it on the video itself. So here's the actual address, the thing he actually says, the transcript. I would suggest you watch this 1 or 2 times just to get a sense for the person and how he's speaking and the context he's speaking in. And then base all of your other work on this based upon the printed thing, since you don't have a text to follow. Now, just to let you know, normally when you win a Nobel Prize, it's big deal. You go, you know what Nobel Prize is, by the way? Everybody know that? It's a big prize. Nobel was the guy who invented gunpowder. This is in the 18th century. Yeah. And he made a fortune with gunpowder. Now, a lot of gunpowder is used for peaceful purposes. For example, if you're going to have a mine looking for coal or silver or something, you use gunpowder to blow holes in the land so you can get to the minerals. But of course, something that powerful is bound to be a weapon, and it made a terrible weapon in the First World War. Nobel was feeling kind of guilty about it. He was very rich, very guilty, so he developed the Nobel Prizes for peace, for literature, for economics, for whatever, and that's whose money this is. He was Sweden. When you win the Nobel Prize, typically you go to Oslo and you go to a very fancy dinner and you give a speech. That's your moment of glory, the crowning moment of your career. Well, Bob Dylan's not exactly that kind of guy. John Steinbeck looks good in a tux. I'm not sure how Bob would look. He's kind of an everyday person, and so he decided he was going to forego the dinner and the speech. He was going to record in a recording studio his own thoughts, his speech. It's kind of nice. I like the way he did it. Okay, so we're going to hear what both of these very important people think about our subject, that is literature. Then I give you how I'm going to assess you, right? And then whenever you see this little icon here, book open, that's going to be an assignment, a graded assignment. Whenever you see this icon with a guy sitting at a desk, that's going to be a writing assignment, specifically writing. I got a couple of other icons you'll see during the course. So here's the assignment. Now it's time for you to share your opinion on Steinbeck and Dylan's view of literature, as well as the works by Frost and Hemingway. Participate in our online discussions by clicking the links below. I will look forward to hearing your ideas. So here's the first one. Write 2 thoughtful paragraphs comparing and contrasting the 2 authors' perspectives, and use your notes. How do these ideas of literature compare to your own idea of literature? And then the second part of it is reply thoughtfully to two other students' comments. So here's how you would get to it. You just go right here.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Um, so I think I messaged you about this part earlier about the peer responses, but what I still wasn't quite sure. So the specific point I'm trying to get at is like, do you have all three parts due on the same day? Like the response to the prompt and the response to classmates due on the same day?
Well,
Or
normally, normally you would sit down, write out your thing, and then you would look through other people's and respond. But sometimes someone's got to be the first one, right? And very often that first one only can have his or her own response and have to wait until other people join in. So the answer is no, they don't have to happen at the same time. As I'm going through them, I know there's a fair number of them. As I'm going through them, if I see that you've got a good response of your own, but nothing with other people, instead of grading it, I'll make a comment. Oh, don't forget to respond to other people. So, I'm going to prompt you if you don't do it. The response is because we don't have a chance otherwise really to talk to each other as we would in a classroom about authors and books and things. So that's what this kind of takes the place of. Now, the other purpose of this is to give you a chance to write in kind of a non-threatening situation. Two well-written paragraphs plus two well-written responses. Um, so think of it not as you would write, say, in a text message or some casual communication like that. Don't use the letter U to meaning YOU. Don't do things like that. And also, watch your grammar, watch your punctuation. Try to make the writing good English teacher writing. You're going to make mistakes, and you're not going to be penalized for them on this particular type of an assignment. But I will note it, and just mainly so you'll know that it's, got to work on that. You will lose points when you get to essays on those things. So every time you sit down to write, try to make that writing polished for this class anyway. Okay, so just think of it as good practice. So anyway, and you can see the rubric here. You give me two thoughtful, specific responses to the prompt. That's going to get you 16 points. If you only give me one paragraph, it's a good paragraph, but it's only one, you get 12. If you don't do anything at all, you got 0. And I could grade in between this. Let's say you wrote 2 and they're okay, but they could be better. I might give you 14 points or 13 points. I can go in between these. Response to the classmates, 2 or more replies. That means two different students that you replied to. And your reply should show either guidance, like if the student asked a question, you want to answer it, or a thoughtful feedback. It can be an agreement or a disagreement with the idea. Now, with both of these, all of this writing, it should be centered on the prompt question and the subject matter. You don't want to just write generalities. If you have a particular thing you want to say about John Steinbeck's speech, you could even quote it, or you could refer to it specifically. Don't just say, oh, he thought literature was really important. That wouldn't be enough. Or, I really agree with you that John Steinbeck wrote a good speech. That wouldn't be enough. You'd have to really get into some details in your responses. Not long word counts, just details. So if you do that, you got 8 points. If you only reply to one person, and even though it's good, you got 6 points. No replies are 0. Once again, I can go in between. Now, if I see that I'm getting close to closing out the assignment and you haven't responded, I'll probably send you a note saying, hey, you want to get in there and do this response thing before I close it out. Okay? But so I'm always watching out for you. I want you to get all the points. Okay? So anyway, that's how that works. Of course, you write your reply in these little boxes. When you're making your response, you can't make your response until you make your initial statements. And you can see how some of this has been going already. Any questions about discussions? There's going to be a lot of them, by the way. So a lot of 24 points, 24 points if you get it all. A lot of 24-point opportunities for you. Okay. Let me go back to that page we were just on. Okay, and then the discussion on the poems. Let's see. Right here, that's right here. I will click into that. For the essay, I need 1 to 2 pages. I'm not looking for a lot of writing. Maybe 4 paragraphs, 5 paragraphs, including an introduction and conclusion. You've all had English once, so you know what I'm talking about. The first paragraph past the introduction really is about yourself. So you want to, and this is to tell me things you want me to know. Tell me about your experience with English so far. Has it been a good experience, a bad experience? If it's been bad, what's bad about it? Try to figure out, I can figure out ways of making it better for you. What's your major? Or do you have a major? If you don't have a major, what are you thinking towards? What are your near-term and long-term goals? What are your strengths in achieving your academic goals? What things challenge you? Let me know anything else you want me to know about you. That would be in the first body paragraph. The second body paragraph would be, what is your favorite piece of literature at this point? Why do you like it so much? Now, you think, well, I don't really have any pieces of literature I like. Well, then I would have to ask you at that point, have you seen any good movies lately that you liked? Or TV shows? Or have you heard any good songs? Or have you perhaps read novels or read poems? All of those things are literature. So if you've seen a good movie, if you really like a particular movie that's out there, you watch it more than once maybe, that's like liking a novel. And what I want you to do is tell me why you like it. What is it about it that grabs you? Maybe it's a character, or maybe it's the way the plot is set up as real suspenseful, or there's something in it that relates to you and makes you like it. So tell me about it. All right. So it's a pretty easy essay, really. And then a conclusion, a very brief conclusion paragraph, and then you're done. Be sure to edit it, though. Try to get it as correct as you can possibly make it, because it's an English essay. And you submit it using this link. When you go to you see the directions are repeated here. And I don't have a rubric. Normally I would have a rubric on it, but I don't really have a rubric because this is just an introductory essay, and you're going to basically get a completed or non-completed grade. It's pass-fail. So I don't have it should be published. I better publish that. Okay. Oh, this brings up another point. Some of these things I don't publish, I didn't have published when I first set them up during the summer. So if you ever can't get into something like this, send me a very non-judgmental email and say, I can't get into that essay assignment. And then I'll know exactly what I have to do. I have to go publish it like you just saw me do. Non-judgmental, though, okay? Got to spare my feelings. Okay, so let me go back again. So I wouldn't expect this essay to take you very long. It's actually due yesterday. Don't worry about that. Just get it in as soon as you can if you haven't done it. There's a note here about the Academic Success and Tutoring Center and NetTutor. The college and your teachers, and me especially, really care that you have every chance to do well in this course and to get a lot out of it. And because I can't sit at a table with you as I would in a classroom and go over individually with you your papers, find out what's causing your problems, try to help, they provided something for you called NetTutor. When you go to NetTutor, there's this thing right here. the person that you would work with is actually a person at Solano College. It's probably a teaching assistant. So you go down to English, and you all have access to this, doesn't cost you anything. And it takes you to a kind of a control board here for English. Look at what these different things are. One is drop in and meet a live tutor. So if you click into that, it gives you a place to put some information, and you just kind of wait, have a cup of coffee, wait until a live tutor pops up on the screen, and then you can talk to that person and discuss whatever you need to discuss. Let's say you don't want to talk to someone, you just want to drop off a paper and get some feedback. This is where you would do that. Maybe you don't have a paper and you don't want to talk to anyone, you just have a question. Maybe it's a grammar question, maybe it's a, I don't know, MLA question. Click into here, drop off your question. And this is where you get it all back, except for this one where it's live. And this one is where you find your paper after it's been looked at or your question after it's been answered. It'll be in here, in your locker. So it's pretty simple. If I were you, I'd be using it a lot. And actually, I would like feedback from you as to how, if you do use it, how is it working? Because they've never done this before, and I really want them to continue even after we're done with having to be online. Let's go back here now. So I've shown you that. Some of these things have more than one tab. First couple of pages, I'll do this to remind you. But the next thing you have to do isn't found by going down here to the next button. The next thing you have to do is here. And then that'll take us here, which is the next page. This is all part of the time frame for this particular unit. And this is where you are doing the active reading. So first we read Robert Frost's poem. You can do that by just clicking here. This particular link takes you to a place called the Poetry Foundation. We'll get a lot of poems out of this website. They also have biographical information about poets. So here's Robert Frost's poem. You got to read that. Read it carefully. Now, we're going to talk later on about how to read poetry and really analyze it, but you don't have to worry about that here. Just kind of get a feel for it, a feel for what the poet's saying. And then you're going to go and you're going to look at what this scholar has to say about it. This was on the PBS NewsHour. Once again, this is one of those things that doesn't have built-in closed captioning, but this link here takes you to a transcript. So if you're having any problems hearing what they're saying, after you've watched it, go to the transcript. Then the next thing is Hills Like White Elephants. That's Hemingway's story. On that particular one, I actually copied it into a document here. So that's within Canvas. Okay. So you want to read that. It's not a very long story, is it? And you can, if you want, you can, if you're an auditory kind of person, there's a link to an auditory reading of it. Where was I? Where am I? I got lost. Go back up to the top. Okay. So this guy's talking about the Hemingway story. This other guy's talking about, this is the Hemingway story. This guy's talking about the poem. So you want to listen to those videos, take notes, what they had to say about these two pieces of literature that you've also read. This is an especially good one I like because it's actually a college professor doing a lecture using these visuals to do a close reading and analysis of Hills Like White Elephants. Now, what are we going to do with all this? Okay, we got an online discussion. We talked about that before, but the online discussion of the two of them. So if I click here, it says, think about the characters and the dilemma of each work. In each work, even in poetry, there's a character. The character is not necessarily the poet. The person saying I did this, I did that, I see this. The person who's speaking the poem does not have to be the poet himself or herself. Could be a character. It could be the poet himself in the case of Frost, or it could be a character having to do with Frost. I don't know. So you want to kind of think of it that way, a character. That means that the way the thing is set up and what it says is very intentional. Okay? So Frost wrote this poem the way he did to get across an idea. And you want to think about that on your own, and then you want to compare your idea to what the guy in the video said. Now, you'll notice that in both stories, there are people with dilemmas. In the case of the poem, it's which way to go on a road that forks. In other words, making a choice. And the dilemma for the Hemingway story, it's about, well, two people talking about what to do with their lives. So making a decision that's going to affect the rest of their lives. And then they're sort of having a subtle argument about it. So the question is, think about the characters and their dilemma. How do Hemingway and Frost present these characters and their dilemma? Do you think the authors are sympathetic to the characters' dilemmas? Does Hemingway take sides in the conflict between the two characters, the man he calls the American and the woman he calls Jig? Does Frost, as an author, voice an opinion about the choice made by the poem's persona, the speaking character? That's one question to address. Another question, how do you react to these characters? Do you have an opinion about their choices? Explain how you've reached your decision, giving details from the story in the poem and perhaps your own life. Respond. That's your two paragraphs, right? We talked about that, and then your response to the other students, and then there's the same rubric. So that'll be a work based on that reading that you'll be doing. Another 24 points. Now, if you find yourself not ready to write that, maybe you read the poem too quickly or something, go back and do it again. Now that you see which way I'm driving at it, you can always go back to it. I talked to you about the student introduction essay. Now I can go to the next page. There were only 2 tabs. And here's the next page, the response essay. Very often when I get to something big like a new essay you got to write, I've made a little video to describe it. Be sure to watch that. Once again, you see the learning objectives, the learning activities. Here are the videos you're going to watch. Here's the little context thing above it. This one's going to tell you about how to analyze a piece of literature. This one's going to teach you or tell you about how to write a response to that piece of literature, which is the kind of essay you're going to write. And this one is about writing a good thesis statement, because that's what most people have trouble with, a thesis statement. So there's a pretty nice little how to do it in this one. So you read all 3 of these. Now, you got to view all 3 of these carefully. And once again, as I said, take notes, because there's going to be a quiz on these things, right? Oh, in addition to these 3 movies, I've got a lecture that's on a PDF. So you want to look at that too and take notes. All of those things could be in the quiz, what's in those things. This is a really good thing here. It's writing a response paper from Hunter College. Hunter College is a college in New York, which has a really nice, I wonder if I can't do that because I'm in this Zoom thing. Well, when you click on it, you'll go to Hunter's College. They have a nice section on writing a response paper. It has student examples, just a nice presentation of it. So that would be another good thing to look at. So you go through this material here in the videos with notes, and then you're ready to take your quiz. You can use your notes. Once again, you can take the quiz, and if you If you get a 70% on it, and you can see the questions you got right, it won't give you the wrong answer. I mean, it won't show you the right answer if you got it wrong. It'll just tell you the answer you got. But at least you'll know it's not the right answer. You can go and review the material again and then take it a second time. So let's say you get a 70% the first time and a 90% the second time, then your overall grade's probably going to be an 80 because I'm going to average them. I don't know if that's the average, but you're going to get an average of the two grades. So that's there. So if you get a really high grade, 100%, don't take it a second time. Then this is about the major essay that we've been talking about, the response essay. I'm going to ask you to write on any short story or poem from our virtual textbook. What's our virtual textbook? Well, click here. And there it is. It's just basically a bunch of links to things. I didn't see any point in you guys spending, $50 for an anthology. So, especially in this day and age with the internet. So it's got a lot of different things. A glossary of literary terms, just so when you're writing your paper, you're using the right phrasing to describe things. I'm going over them too with you, and some of the videos are. But if you wanted to double check a term, what does it mean when you're talking about the way the characters interact? Well, maybe there's a term for it. Same with poetry terms. Right here is a wonderful link to a website, which is basically an anthology. Now, you see here, it's got stories for high school and middle school and your college students. But you know what? Some of them are pretty darn good. For example, we go to mystery stories, right? You happen to like mystery stories. Basically, this is going to have things that are in the public domain. So this first one seems to be, okay, I'll move this for a moment. See what I've got. Okay, so this is The Wind in the Rosebush, published 1903. So it gives you a little background, not much, and then there's the story. There's my dog barking in the background. He's in another room, though, but he's very loud. You can go also to authors. Okay, I would like to find a short story. Oh, I like Edgar Allan Poe. I'll tell you what's happening out there. He's at the window and he just saw a dog walk past the front yard. Fall the House of Usher, that's a book. Short stories, here. So read a short story by Edgar Allan Poe. Cool. So you can find stories easily. When I ask you to write a paper about some work of literature, and you already know something about a writer, maybe you can find one that way. But I also have links to things that we'll be using. For example, here's a poem by Maya Angelou called Caged Bird. Emily Dickinson, Robert Frost, of course, Nikki Giovanni, not only poems by her, but a video of her being interviewed and reading poems. We're going to be looking later on at Langston Hughes in connection with both poetry and drama and short stories. He does it all. And there are some really good links here that you're going to be using. And some of these are presented within the unit, but also some of them you would come here to find if I don't present it in the unit. Okay, so this is where you can get your stuff. And if you find something you want to write on that's not in here, just let me know what it is. Probably I'm fine with it. So when you write your essay, if you happen to quote anybody, you need to cite it. You've all taken LR10, right? Sure, everyone's taken LR10 because you did English, that you had to take LR10. So I've put a link to the MLA style sheet just so you have it for reference. I'm asking you to write your papers on Google Docs for a couple of reasons. The main reason is it's easier to share papers. So if you want to show your paper to someone else in the class for commentary, it's easy to share it with that person. It's easier to also to share it with me. Here's where you submit your essay. Your essays are going to all go through a service called Turnitin. I'm sure you've heard about it. In case you don't know about it, here's a video that describes it and how to use it, and also how to check your results from it. For example, how to see the way I grade a paper and how you can see the notes. And once again, the tutoring center. At the end of each unit, I give a little video kind of wrapping up what we learned, and I give you something that you want to read further. So if you'd like to read more Robert Frost, here's a link to his page at the Poetry Foundation. Here's Bob Dylan's official website. You can hear some of his songs, hear about him. If you want to know more about John Steinbeck, here's the National Steinbeck Center in Salinas. A lot of stuff there. Hemingway Resource Center. And except for maybe Dylan, all of these works are going to be available on the internet because these are all public domain now. And then at that point, we are finished with Unit 1. And you can't go to Unit 2 yet, but I'll give you a preview. Notice, it's got a load up here. Unit 2 goes from September 1 to September 16th. Here's the list of what we're doing. And then it moves on from there. See how I change my clothes now and then. Here I got a sweatshirt on. Sometimes I sit in different places. Here's a lecture I recorded. Here's a lecture I got from some other teacher. I don't know what this is. So anyway, it continues. Notice it's also tabs. Okay. Now, the only thing I haven't really talked to you about is the virtual seminar. And I think I'm going to hold off on that until we get closer to it in September, because I think this is enough information to absorb right now. You two guys have any questions?
Not particularly. The one about the difference between peer responses and prompt responses was my big thing.
Yeah. Oh, you got it there.
No questions for me either.
Okay. Well, if you come up with questions, it's easy enough to ask. So you know how to do that. And I want to thank you for being my audience for this.
You're welcome.
Movie. It's going to be on the website pretty soon. Okay. Well, you guys have a nice evening and stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank
You too, Professor. Stay safe.
See you around. Goodbye.